साचेत आनन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमाना नमामीश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमाना यशोदाभियोलुकालदवमानं परं हृष्टमत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या यशोदाभियोलुकालदवमानं परं हृष्टमत्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्ममृजन्तं करं भुजयुग्मेन सतङ्कनेत्रा रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्ममृजन्तं करं भुजयुग्मेन सतङ्कनेत्रा मुहुश्वासकम्पात्रिरेखाङ्ककान्ता स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिवदा मुहुश्वासकम्पात्रिरेखाङ्ककान्ता स्थितग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिवदा इति त्रिक्स्वलीलाधीरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तमख्यापयन्तम् इति त्रिक्स्वलीलाधीरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषं निमज्जन्तमख्यापयन्तम् तदीयेषिताग्नेषु भक्तर्जितत्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्तं सता वृत्तिवन्दे तदीयेषिताग्नेषु भक्तर्जितात्मा पुनः प्रेमतस्तं सता वृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षं वदिं वा न चान्यं वृणेऽहं द्वारेषदपीह मोक्षं न मोक्षं वदिं वा न चान्यं वृणेऽहं द्वारेषदपीह वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षं वदिं वा न चान्यं वृणेऽहं द्वारेषदपीह इदं ते वपुरनाथ गोपालबाला सदा मे मनस्य वीरस्तं किमन्ये पुरनाथ गोपालबालां सदा मे मनस्य वीरस्तं किमन्ये इदं ते मुखं भोजमत्यन्तनीले वृतं कुण्डलै स्निग्धरक्तश्च गोप्या इदं ते मुखं भोजमत्यन्तनीले वृतं कुण्डलै स्निग्धरक्तश्च गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य विरस्तमालां लक्षलम् मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य विरस्तमालां लक्षलभे नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलाब्धिमग्नाम् नमो देव दामोदरानन्त विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलाब्धिमग्नाम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्याति दीनं बतानु गृहाणे क्षमामाज्ञामेध्यक्षिदृश्यै कृपादृष्टिवृष्याति दीनं बतानु गृहाणे क्षमामाज्ञामेध्यक्षिदृश्यै मृत्याय वयामोचिता भक्ति भजौ कृतौ च कुबेरात्मजौ मृत्याय वयामोचितौ भक्ति भजौ कृतौ च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकं मे प्रयाचा न मोक्षे ग्रहो मे दामोदरेह तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकं मे प्रयाचा न मोक्षे ग्रहो मे दामोदरेह नमस्ते स्तुदाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमस्ते स्तुदाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदराय विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकाय त्वदीयाय प्रियाय नमो नन्तलीलाय देवयतुभ्याम् नममेश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपा लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमाना यशोदाभियो लोकालादवमाना परं हृष्टमात्यन्ततो धृत्य गोप्या हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
To the Supreme Lord, whose form is the embodiment of eternal existence, knowledge, and bliss, whose shark-shaped earrings are swinging to and fro, who is beautifully shining in the divine realm of Gokula, who, due to the offense of breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother was churning into butter, and then stealing the butter that was kept hanging from a swing, is quickly running from the wooden grinding mortar in fear of Mother Yashoda, but who has been caught from behind by her, who ran after him with greater speed. To that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. Seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hand, he is crying and rubbing his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes are filled with fear, and the necklace of pearls around his neck, which is marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, is shaking because of his quick breathing due to crying. To this Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, his belly is bound not with ropes but with his mother's pure love. I offer my humble obeisances. By such childish pastimes as this, he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy, and is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is free from all conceptions of awe and reverence. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord Damodar hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Balagopal in Vrindavan may ever be manifest in my heart. For what is the use to me of any other boon besides this? O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Damodar, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, be pleased upon me. By showering your glance of mercy upon me, deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodar, just as the 2 sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvera, were delivered from the curse of Narad and made into great devotees by you in your form as a baby tied with rope to a wooden grinding mortar, in the same way, please give to me your own Prema Bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation. O Lord Damodar, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisance to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Radha Damodar ki jai.
We do the last prayers and Lord Nrsingadev's prayers. Please everybody join in. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Daine. Pralada Lada Daine. Hiranyakashi Parvaksha. Hiranyakashi Parvaksha. Hiranyakashi Parvaksha. Shilatankana Kalaye. Shilatankana Kalaye. Hito Narsima Parato Narsima Hito Hito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Narsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Narsimha Yato Pae Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha Narasimha Madin Saranam Prapade Narasimha Madin Saranam Prapade Narasimha Madin Tavakara Kamalavare Abutaringa Alita Hiranyakashipu Tanabringa Keshavarita Hare Hari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare नृसिंहदेव की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, और प्रेमानंदे। Hare Krishna, there's Mahaprasad being served outside in the reception area there. Thank you all. Make sure you all have prasad before you go. Thank you. And the next arati is at 9 o'clock. So you may stay here and have some prasad and stay here till 9 o'clock. Very well. And then tomorrow is a Mangal Arati as well. So you can all stay there. Yes. India થી લેવાનું યાદ છે? હા હા ઇન્ડિયાથી લેવા હતા પછી વેચી નાખ્યું બીજા જોતી 850 મેં 800 મને બીજું ટ્રાન્સપોર્ટ ને બધું ખર્ચો રામ કે ઇવન વેચી નાખ્યું સ્ટુડન્ટને જ વેચ્યું પણ it's very nice food. Go find your food. Beautiful. It's like a made to order. Very beautiful. They're one of the best. હવે છે ને કામી માં બીજો મહારાજનો પછી કેટલા ભેગા કરીને
That's it. Yes, I'm preach, so you won't believe it. Isn't it?
Hả? Tiếp ra tiếp ra. I've still got 10 minutes. I've got 10 minutes. It starts at 7:45. Okay. Yeah. Huh? And 10 minutes. Huh? Yeah. It doesn't matter. For me, it's just trying to practice. Yeah. Yeah. It's tensed. So? Okay, is it the class? I've got an hour. I think I've got an hour. I've got an hour. So might as well start clearing at 7:45. Okay, so Kirtan just now, yeah? Okay. Just 3 minutes. Yeah? Okay. Just normal Kirtan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sinyavadi Pasyatya Tarine Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Bajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokul Nanda, Radha Gokul Nanda, Radha Gokul Nanda Shri Radha. Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं, श्रीगुरु वैष्णवंश, श्रीरूपं सागजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सर्वदूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता विशाखां विदंश्च He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishapanu Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kipasindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we'll be reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 3. So I'm just going to read the Sanskrit translation, and I'll read it 3 times. So if you follow me, and then I'll ask a volunteer to repeat if anyone wants to. Actually, it goes. So it goes. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavatyatma Tatyatam Uchyate Bhuta Bhava Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samnitaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Param Brahma Paramam Svabhavatyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhava Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samsnitaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavatyatmam Uchyate Bhuta Bhava Bhavakaro Visarga Karma Samsnitaha. So now the word-to-word translation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Aksharam, indestructible, Brahma, Brahman, Paramam, transcendental, Svabhava, eternal nature, Adhyatmam, the self, Uchyate, is called, Bhuta Bhava Udbhava Kara, producing the material bodies of the living entities, Visarga, creation, Karma, fruitive activities, Samjnitaha, is called. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies or the living entities is known as karma, or fruitive activities. So now reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Brahma is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman, there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jiva Atma and Brahman, but he is never called Para Brahman. The living entity takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior, spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8.4 million species of life. But in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yagna. But when his merit is exhausted, he returns to the earth again, in the form of a man. This process is called karma. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offering are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man, and woman. And the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer, on the moon, rain, grains, and semen. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specifically heavenly planets, and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to the earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transformed into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice, and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad Gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse, the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is impossible to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, in this verse, so Prabhupada refers to mainly refers to something called Brahman and something called Parabrahman. So what is Brahman? Brahman actually refers to he calls it the transcendental living entity. He's actually referring to us. And you may wonder why he calls us indestructible and eternally existing. That's what Prabhupada says. And he says that, and its constitution is not changed at any time. So over here, we understand that this can't be referring to the body, because the body is ever changing. Our cells multiply. we change at every point in our life. But over here, what what Prabhupada is referring to is the soul. And the soul's nature is Satchid Ananda, which means eternally knowledgeable, eternally blissful, and eternally existing. So that is Adi Atma, the self. So that is the self. So when we think we're the body, we're under illusion, and actually the self is the soul. So the second thing that this refers to is Parabrahman. Now what does that refer to? It refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Super Soul. And the Super Soul, it is wrong to think that the Super Soul and the soul is the same. So that concept comes out in this verse quite a lot. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Parabrahman. So it's referred to as Achyuta, which means infallible. Whereas the living entity, us living entities, we are described as something called marginal. So we have the ability to perform good karma, we have the ability to perform bad karma, and we also have the choice to perform spiritual karma. So when we perform good and bad karma, we are acting on the material consciousness. Because although, even though we may be performing pious activities, any sort of pious activities, what is the law of karma? For every action, there's a reaction, right? And so even if we're performing good karma, pious karma, the result of that is that we'll still have to come back in this material world to enjoy the fruits of that pious reaction. Yeah? And so that is, so we still have to enjoy the fruits of that reaction. And so we still have to come back to this material world. Because the only way we could go back to the spiritual world is when we have no karma. That sounds near impossible, right? How can you have no karma? Does anyone want to guess? Does anyone want to guess how we could have no karma? So some interaction.
Make it more Krishna conscious.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So you add Krishna to your life. So how do we add Krishna to our life? How is it possible to add Krishna to every aspect of our life? Well, so a few things that we could do practically in our day. So in this age of Kali, first of all, the mode of sacrifice that's recommended is the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And it said, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam, Kalo naste, vinaste, 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 vakatir anyata. So there is no other way, and there's no other way but the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to go back to Godhead. And it's a very easy method. So why would we want to take up to other sacrifices? So why do you have to go put ourselves through like torture? Like why do you have to fast so many days? Why do you have to why do you have to go to the forest? We can't like why do you have to go to the forest and isolate yourself from our family? That's not possible, right? How can we focus on light? Is that possible? If we try and focus on something, does our mind stay still? It's not steady, right? It's as quick as the wind. So how is that possible? So the type of sacrifice that is recommended is that of the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And often the reason why we perform sacrifices is to get something in return. And that's not the right mood of performing sacrifice, actually. So you may say, okay, examples of sacrifice may be that I'm giving in charity. It's a good thing. I'm funding someone's education. It's also a very good thing. I'm giving food to the poor. And etc. But because these, and often, I'm fasting on a day, I'm performing lots of havans. What's the reason behind you performing the havans? Often there's a selfish motive, right? So you perform havans, you may perform these sacrifices. You may give to charity in one of like recognition or fame. Like, look, this person is so good. Often people want to hear that, right? Or so you give food to the poor, which is actually good. But the other example I forgot what I gave. But so basically you do these pious activities. And because you're doing these pious activities, you're building pious karma. You're building pious good karma. And good karma, like I said, still binds you to this material world. And by performing good karma, we may even take on the position of, we may go to the heavenly planets. And it's even possible, believe it or not, to take on the position of a demigod as well. Lord Indra is himself, he's scared that someone will take his position. Just imagine that. So we could go to the extent of even performing pious activities that even like become a demigod. But even the demigods, they still have to go through this birth, they still have to go through birth, death, old age, and disease. And to a lesser extent. And they're fallible. They're still fallible. So the way, how do you make, I diverted a little bit. So how do you add Krishna to our life? So the first method was chanting. A second thing we could do is that, the second question one may ask, is that I am studying. As a student, we may say, I am studying. So how can I Krishnaize my activities? How can I how can I include Krishna in my studies? It's impossible. So what you do is the consciousness with which you study, you think, okay, if I study nicely, then I'll get social position. If I get social position, I could maybe preach for Krishna, and I'll be acknowledged by other people as an authoritative source. So that's one thing. The other thing you could do is in family life. It's a major part of our life. So what you do is you see your family every day. And you think of them, you see them as a part and parcel of Krishna. And the part and parcel of Krishna, so you see them as Krishna's children, or Krishna's property. It's Krishna's property. Therefore, if you go with the consciousness that I am serving Krishna's devotees, then you're spiritualizing the activity. So, for your child, it's more important that you give them some spiritual knowledge, it's more important than material knowledge, actually, because that's what's really going to help them. Because that's what's really going to help them get out of this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. The other things we could do is have a deity or a murti a temple in the center of a house. This reminds us that Krishna is the owner of the house. Is the owner of the house. I'm not the owner of the house. And the other thing is, we may give to, the other activity I said is we may give to the poor. We may give to the poor, right? Or food to the poor. So why not if you give food to the poor, why not give them prasad? So prasad is offered food to Krishna. So why not give them prasad? Because it's said that by eating normal food, we in the Bhagavad Gita is that we accumulate sin. So why give food with sin? Why not give purified food? Right? So you give food, but give prasad. You try and educate someone, but you also try and give them Krishna with it. You may give money to hospitals, but with that you give them the reason why it's important to maintain good health. And the reason why it's important to maintain good health is so we could serve Krishna. So you give the reasons behind why you're doing it. And a perfect example of someone who uses senses completely for Krishna is a personality called Amrish Maharaj. Sorry about that. So, Maharaj Amrish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in descending the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Amrish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service. In various engagements related to the Lord, this is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and to be completely free from material desires. So this personality, Maharaj Amrish, demonstrates how simple it is to engage our senses in Krishna consciousness or thinking about Krishna in devotional service. So there's one concept. So all our sacrifices essentially should be to please. What are sacrifices for? Yagna is performed to please Vishnu or Krishna. So our aim of our sacrifices should be to please Krishna. And if we do this, we won't incur karma. And if we don't incur karma, we'll escape from this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, and we'll go back to Golok Vrindavan, where we originally came from, and be happy. Because in Golok Vrindavan there is no misery. It's all spiritual. It's just happy. Everything is blissful. Happily engaged in serving Krishna. And because that's our constitutional position, the constitutional position of the soul is service to Krishna, we are most happy in that position. So this is the way to get out of this material world. Do everything for Krishna. Yeah? And so at work, there's lots of examples you can give. At work, it's important to give a proportion of your salary to a Krishna conscious cause. Yeah? So actually, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur said, give 50% of your earnings to charity, 25% for personal belongings, and 25% for emergency purposes. But we, obviously, right now, this financial situation is that we can't do that. But if we could give a certain percentage, even a little bit of an amount of our salary to a Krishna conscious cause, then we're basically making our work spiritual. Spiritualizing or adding Krishna to our work like that. So that's some practical tips that I could think of at the moment. And so the other thing is, I mentioned that, so why are we are fallible. Why are we fallible? So human being, does everybody agree? We have these 4 defects. We have imperfect senses. Who over here says their senses are perfect? Can anyone say that? No. No one could say that our senses are perfect, right? So an examples of that is like, okay, our hearing, often when we grow old, you have to have hearing aids, right? How is that perfect, right? Or when we get disease, like when you get some sort of disease, or even a cold, like a sense of taste goes, a sense of smell goes, like, and COVID, what is that? Like a sense of smell and taste goes, right? So how is that? How is our senses perfect, right? Even the touch, even our touch. They say if someone blindfolded us, and they asked us to touch an elephant, and we didn't know it was an elephant, of course. And one person may feel the leg of the elephant, and they may think it's like a column. The other person may touch the tail of the elephant, and they think it's a rope or so. So our senses are imperfect. Like the touch. You can't really to use it. It's not. Yeah, it's deceiving. And also, like, say if you see the sun. The sun to us, the sun looks like the size of a plate, essentially, right? Like if you see it from here. If no one educated us that the sun was so big, how would we ever know that? So our eyes are imperfect, right? So that's, first of all, human beings, us as living entities, we're imperfect. The next thing is we have the propensity to make mistakes. Whoever here can honestly say that they've never made a mistake in their life? Nobody, right? So that would be lying. You make mistakes all the time. The other thing is we have this propensity to cheat. So scientists, they come up with these theories and hypotheses. But based on what? Like, they haven't proven it yet. So why are you writing books of knowledge on this when you haven't proven that theory? Like, it's a theory. It's a theory. So they're cheating themselves. They think they know everything, right? And so I say and we're illusioned. Illusioned, why? Because we think we associate ourselves with the body. We think we're the body and not the soul. And that is illusion, because that's not true. We think that we are the enjoyers and we are the controllers. And that's not true. We cannot even speak without Krishna. We can't blink. Cannot move. I can't move my finger without Krishna sanctioning it. So to think we're in control is, the body is an illusion, right? It's an illusion. So whereas Krishna, now when you compare him to, now you compare it to Krishna, right? Krishna is infallible. Krishna is infallible. He doesn't have these 4 defects that we'd have, right? So in fact, he could remember past, present, and future. And he's forever youthful. He's never yogendra. So he always looks like he's 16. It's for us, if someone asked us what we did yesterday, we wouldn't know. But Krishna knows everything. He knows past, he knows present, he knows future. And even when he comes to this material world, he comes in his own form. He's unaffected. He's unaffected by the material world. And and it doesn't affect him. So therefore and also like, so when he comes, right, he performs lots of like amazing miracles. So when Krishna came, what event just went? Govardhan Puja, right? Like recently. As a little boy, he held the Govardhan hill with his little pinky finger for 7 days and 7 nights. Now, which ordinary human being can do that? Like, you cannot even hold, if someone told us to hold a plate with our little finger, it would drop it, right? So which ordinary human being could do that? So, and as a child, Krishna, there's this demon that came to him, like as a mother, in the form of a mother called Putana. And he knew that it was a demon. He knows that his child he knows like he's Krishna, but he's acting, right? It's like he thinks that she basically tried to breastfeed him, but in her breast was poison, so she's trying to kill Krishna. But Krishna, being Krishna, she fulfilled her desires. Because he took her to be his mother, because that's what a mother does. But he didn't allow, obviously, he basically sucked the life air of Putna, and so she died. So now, which ordinary little boy can do that? So Krishna is God when he is a baby, he's a God when he is in his youth, he's God throughout his life, right? And so to think that we are one with Krishna, that we are the same as Krishna, that Brahman and Parabrahman are the same, is a mistake, right? Because we cannot be like that. So the essence of this is that we should offer all sacrifices to Krishna. We should understand that our position is servant of Krishna, and that we're not the controllers. And we should not falsely try and enjoy this material world, because this material world is like a prison house. This material world is like the prison house. Because we're constantly trying to change our bodies. Like we think, okay, if I get this body, I'll be happy. If I get that body, I'll be happy. But happiness does not. This world is dukkhalayam. The nature of this world is dukkhalayam. So it's not possible to be happy in this material world. Just as a prisoner might think, if I change my cell to another cell, I might be happy. And we're like these prisoners. And this is not possible. The other important thing is, so why did Krishna descend to this material world? Does anyone know? So he says, Yada yada hi dharmasya gnanir bhavatir bharata abhyustanam adharmasya tadatmanam shrijami aham. So Krishna descends in this material world to deliver. So he descends in this material world. Whenever and wherever there's a decline in religious practice, he says, O descendant of Bharata, and a prominent rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So Krishna comes to this material world to re-establish religiosity, and also it says, Paritaraya sadhunam vinashaya tudukshritam dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna comes in this material world to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. And he says, I myself appear millennium and after millennium for this purpose. So he comes to destroy the miscreants. And even when he comes to destroy the miscreants, it's mercy, because they get liberation. But mainly his purpose is to protect his devotees. And an example of this is Prahlad Maharaj, how Nrsimhadev came to protect Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj was a perfect example of someone who had perfected remembrance of Krishna, or remembrance of Nrsimhadev or Krishna. And his father was completely against this. He threatened to kill him on several occasions. He threw him in a pit of snakes. He threw him off a cliff. He tried to feed him poison because he couldn't understand the fact, he couldn't get to grips with the fact that Prahlad was always telling him that the main goal of life is to remember Krishna, and that's to serve Krishna. And for him it's to serve me and to please me. Like, he was really annoyed, right? And so what happened? On all these occasions, Lord Nrsimhadev, the half lion, half man form of incarnation of Krishna, came to save Prahlad Maharaj. Even when he was in fire, he didn't. All these instances, he was saved. And in the end, what happened? Lord Nrsimhadev, when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, "Where is your Krishna? Is he in this pillar?" And Prahlad Maharaj said yes. And to fulfill his devotee's word, Lord Nrsimhadev came out with a roar out of the pillar, and he teared Hiranyakashipu apart. So he came to protect his devotees. And similarly, Krishna will protect us if we're sincere in our devotional life. So does anyone have any questions? Yes? Mm-hmm.
Prashad, like we always make prayers before we're like honoring Prashad, or even if we're offering. Even like when we receive like flowers or that we offer to the deities, we're always like, even sometimes I don't realize it myself, but like I put it to my phone and I smell it without thinking twice. So would you say we do that in a way, like as devotees?
Yeah.
In a way, not trying to be like him, but qualities that he displayed in doing.
So obviously we're trying our best. It's important to try our best to be like that, right? And obviously we are all conditioned souls, right? So we've come with so much conditioning from so many previous lives, and so due to that conditioning, it may be hard for us to think of Krishna all the time. It may be difficult initially, but it's a process of the cleansing of the heart. It's Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So right now, the mirror of our heart is very dusty. The mirror of our heart is very dusty, but when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this cleanses that mirror, the mirror of the heart. As the mirror of the heart is cleansed, the anarthas are like bad habits that we have, like getting angry, lusty, greed, having too much desires, right? They get cleansed. When they get cleansed, the more we chant, the less attraction we have. The product of chanting is that not only do we develop these good qualities, but we get attachment, more and more attachment for Krishna, and detachment from the material world. And when this happens, it becomes more natural for us to do it. It becomes easier and easier for us to remember Krishna. But it comes with a sincere desire. It has to be done sincerely and without offenses. Then we'll see progress. Otherwise, we may never see progress. But anyways, the chanting in itself will purify us. But we may not, we will see progress, but we won't see rapid progress, to say that. There. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, I had another question.
Yeah.
Based on what you just said. So you say chanting Hare Krishna clears us of the karma of fugitive activities in the material world?
Clearing the karma. So, what happens is, chanting Hare Krishna clears. Yeah, I might say, I don't want to say something wrong in this one, but we still, you're gonna have. So Krishna minimizes our karma. Let's put it that way. So we may have to undergo. We may have had to. We may have had like a car accident where we got really badly injured, but instead in that car accident, just one part of a body breaks or something like that. I know this is a bad example, but essentially Krishna then takes control. So he only gives you stuff that you could handle. So he may give you some sort of this. You may undergo this. You have to undergo the reactions of your bad karma, but in a minimized way. In a way that when you're Krishna's devotee, he'll give it to you in a way which you could take it. He knows that it won't completely build. It will. It might build it. It won't completely. You'll be able to handle it essentially. Yeah.
Essentially, it's like temporary.
What's that?
As in, like if you do something like bewilderment, would you say like essentially?
It's not temporary. You have the strength. You have the strength. You have the strength, and he only gives you something that you could handle. Yeah. So something that you could handle. He knows you could handle it. Basically, that's why he's given it to you. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. I hope you got something from the class. And please accept my apologies for any mistakes I made. Yeah. So we'll end it there if it's no questions. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর সদে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে। এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচন্দ মধুর স্বরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম রাম, হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম রাম, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে কৃষ্ণ, হরে কৃষ্ণ, কৃষ্ণ কৃষ্ণ, হরে হরে, হরে রাম, হরে রাম, রাম রাম, হরে হরে, রাম রাম, হরে Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Sila Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর সরে এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর সরে হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে হরে এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর স্বরে এই নাম গায়ে গোরাচাঁদ মধুর স্বরে হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे राम हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare